Thank you, gentlemen. This is rumor control. Here are the facts.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather said something that was brilliant one time.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about him having all his girlfriends. He said, look, if I can afford 9 cars, I'm going to have 9 cars. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's the realest shit. Like what you just said is real. Yeah. Level yourself up to where it's a no-brainer. Right. Listen, I've had many experiences with women, and I used to lie. I'm not gonna lie. I used to lie all the time, right? Yeah. And I was hurting people over and over and over, and hurting people I cared about. And I'm like, I'm being a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm being dishonest. Mm-hmm. That's low life energy for me, right? So I had to elevate out of that, and I started being honest. And I remember the first time I was like, look, what you think about him? Would you ever have a menage? You know what I'm saying? She's like, nah, I don't think so. I said, okay, say less, right? So then I sent her a video from like Pornhub of 2 girls, right? And it was a hot video. Yeah. I'm like, you don't think that's hot? She's like, actually, that is hot. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So she's like, about that, is that something you want to do? I'm like, hey, I'm down. I don't need to, but why? What's up? You want to? You know what I'm saying? And it started going down. You know what I'm saying? And then I just started being super honest about everything, and I learned that when you're super straightforward with somebody and like, look, I care about you, whatever it is you got to say or that you feel, that usually they're okay with it. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, like the women that I've dealt with in the past few years, there's only one that wasn't okay with that, and I'm like, fine. And listen, this was a situation to where she came out to stay with me for about a month or 2. This was when I was in Arizona. I said, yo, you down with menages? She was like, nah. I said, all right, well, I like variety. So if I want to hang out with somebody, you cool with going to a hotel? She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I guess. And it happened like that. You know what I'm saying? So listen, from my experiences, being honest is the best case scenario.
Well, today we're going to be talking about Mike Rashid. Hopefully I am pronouncing that right. Have been unfamiliar with this guy up until about the last couple of weeks here. I'm probably out of the loop. I get it. Not my wheelhouse. Sorry. I apologize. But I do realize that Fresh and Myron were on his show, a very well-watched show. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Mike, go ahead and look him up if you haven't already. I apologize for I will probably get this demonetized, but I apologize for having lifted anything copyright-wise. Fair use. Thank you. But today I'm going to sort of dig into this video just a touch. I wanted to talk about blue pill alphas, and Mike here happens to be a shining example. I can't think of a better illustration of a blue pill alpha than Mike Rashid. And so, the guy is a boxer. He is a bodybuilder. He is a positivity guy. He has several different brands, 2 of which have alpha in the titles of them. So I think it's a safe bet to say that Mike is definitely an alpha male. I don't think too many people would disagree with that. Now, when I talk about what a blue pill alpha is, or red pill beta is, right? I think I've written several articles about this, but the one I'm going to reference today, and I will put it into the description here below, is titled Blue Pill Alphas. And the reason why I wrote this originally was on account of, let's see, I hope I did this right. Yeah, I did. Okay, echo cancellations off. Sorry. So anyways, so I am writing this essay, and the reason why I wrote this essay, this Blue Pill Alphas, is on account of people kept asking me, well, if you're red pill Rolo, doesn't that mean you're alpha? Shouldn't that make you alpha? Or if you're a blue pill chump beta, that means you're blue pill and you're a beta and you're a chump. And I had to write this essay because I had to make a distinction here, because too many people seem to conflate blue pill with beta and red pill with alpha. And those two concepts are mutually exclusive. Now, I know guys like Donovan have already done breakdown videos of Mike. I know that they have, I think CGA has also done something recently, maybe even with this video right here. So I have a feeling that I am probably jumping on a bandwagon here, everyone else is, but hopefully I can give you a better take than most. And I'm going to dig in a little bit here. I'm not, again, I don't know Mike from Adam. Okay. I don't know who the guy is up until, like I said, about like a week or two ago. In fact, I had no idea that Fresh and Myron were even going to go on his show. I know that they are in Los Angeles right now. They did the No Jumper show, and they're doing Mike's show as well. Mike has a co-host on here whose name escapes me. He'll also be part of this illustration today too. So I just wanted to point out a few things before I get started here. I'm not attacking these guys whatsoever. God forbid, right? I mean, yeah, I think I run a greater risk of actually criticizing a guy like Mike because, first of all, he's black. Second of all, for me to say he's blue pill is almost like saying, well, he's beta. Well, he's definitely not beta. He is what I would refer to as a blue pill alpha. And that's because too many people seem to think that if you are blue pill, it automatically equals beta. It does not. Okay. I've said this in the past, and I'm going to read a little bit from my essay, Blue Pill Alphas, here in just a second, so you guys can sort of wrap your head around things. But I'm going to scrub through this video. This is about a 3 hour and 20-minute video. So clearly I am not going to, get through this entire thing today. I'm only just going to pick parts of it out that I think are relevant to today's topic. And this is actually something I wanted to do for quite some time. So thank you guys for presenting me with this great illustration. You do not necessarily have to be red pill to be alpha. You can be red pill and still be very, very beta. As a matter of fact, a lot of the black pill community, and I mean that is in terms of like the doomer community, the incel community, are very, very much red pill aware. Very red pill aware. They'll call it black pill, right? Because they want to find some way to sort of hive off and create their own little sub tribe of, nihilistic doomers in the manosphere, or whatever the hell we're calling it for this decade. But the fact is they're very red pill aware. They're just very beta. They haven't been able to sort of break out of the idea of, this sort of loser mentality. The same thing is true for guys who are just like Mike here. You can very much be an alpha male and still be blue pill conditioned. In fact, I would say that that's probably even more common than nihilistic, despondent, doomers. I have met several, and without even knowing it, throughout my life, throughout my time on planet Earth here, I've probably met more blue pill alphas than any other guy I have ever met. And these are usually the guys who are very, say, for lack of a better term, self-righteous. Okay. And I don't mean that in like, oh, you're so, it's not like they're stuck up. I mean, some are, but like, that's not what I'm getting at. It's just like they believe in their own righteousness. They believe in their own right purpose. They believe that their belief set is what everyone else should believe, and they are successes. And so therefore you too should just simply believe the same ideology or the same belief set that they have. And therefore you will be a success as well. In fact, that's pretty much the premise of guys like Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, anybody who's on the sort of positivity, what I've called in the past success porn grift. That guy right there is hard to deal with for most guys. It's hard to deal with for guys like me because it's hard to criticize that because you're looking at a guy who's clearly successful, right? He's making a lot of money. I mean, that's the metric, right? Is the numbers, is the bank account. Look at here's my cars, here's my house, here's my very successful podcast. I am, here's my life story. Here, it's not even accolades, right? It is your body of work. And so what you can't, it's very difficult to argue with that, particularly when that guy has been has been steeped, I guess, in a blue pill conditioning for a long time. And by blue pill conditioning, I mean in the sense that, and of course, this is the rational male, right? So we're talking about intersexual dynamics here. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a moment. But some of the most annoying white knights you will ever meet in this life will be blue pill alphas. And I dare say that Mike is an alpha white knight in this sense. And maybe that's, it goes back to what Ryan and I have been talking about. Maybe that's because he genuinely believes this. And I understand. I would guarantee you he probably would pass a polygraph test saying, do you believe in the things that you're saying here? Yeah, absolutely he does. And so when you get a couple of guys like Myron and Fresh on there, or somebody like Donovan Sharp starts criticizing him, or even like maybe Coach Greg Adams, who I would presume he was probably pretty mild in his critiquing, or Rollo Tomasi for that matter, I run the risk of getting my ass kicked. And I mean that in the figurative sense, not in the physical sense. Because the moment I am critical of a guy like Mike, or I am critical of a guy like Kevin Samuels for that matter, and I can point out certain aspects of an argument or certain aspects of where we're supposed to follow the debate to its logical conclusion to, if I have a problem with that, or if I say that that's maybe there's some other things that we need to think about, or God, it doesn't even have to be me. I mean, it could be Fresh or it could be Myron on a show like this. You're going to get haters. So, fair game, fair warning. I understand that. I got that. I don't hate anybody. I don't care about anybody. I didn't even know who Kevin Samuels was until probably February this year. And more power to them. I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing, and I'm glad that they're helping guys out. I'm glad that guys are getting benefit and are increasing their, they're living the best lives that they can possibly live as a result of this, right? But that doesn't put them above reproach. That does not put them above criticism. That does not put them above being sort of dissected, I guess, for a belief set. Now, I'm not saying what they're doing is bad. I'm not saying what they're doing is good. I'm just analyzing this. Okay. I just work here, guys. So I just want to throw that standard caveat out there. Even when I did my breakdown video of Emma Thorne, I'm not attacking her per se. Everybody will think I am, and that's okay if I go and attack her. But if I go and I make a critique video of some sorts, or if I am in any way critical of anyone else, then that's all on me, right? So just all depends on kind of who you agree with and who you don't. However, now that said, I would classify Mike as a blue pill alpha male. You can be blue pill conditioned and still be very much alpha. Most of those guys end up being like the coaches, right? Those are guys end up being the Superman archetypes. They're the guys who are still alpha, but they're kind of alpha in the sense that they're pro-social alphas. I understand that a lot of what Mike is about to dig into here in just a moment comes from a perspective of not wanting to alienate his female audience. A guy like Kevin Samuels doesn't have any problem with that, because what's interesting about Kevin Samuels' sort of template, I guess, is that the women come to him for their own critique and their own criticisms, and women love to hate him. That's why he's popular. And again, at least somewhere between them loving to hate him and him sort of dressing them down, at least there is some sort of logical conversation that goes along with this, that hopefully someone, even if it's not the woman he's talking to, someone who is in the audience is benefiting from this and understands what he's saying and will change something about themselves, hopefully, or at least think about things in a different way. Same thing applies here. So when I am picking this apart, I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that I'm not doing it because I think I'm going to change anybody's minds. Heck, I know half the time I'm not going to do that. But I do know that there's a large audience of guys who are going to say, well, yeah, right. And they're going to, yeah. It's like preaching to the choir, but I'm hoping that people who are outside of the choir will see this and then change their mind about things. So there you have that. So what do I mean by a blue pill alpha? And what do I mean by a red pill beta? Red pill beta is easy. As I said, this is guys who are very red pill and don't know what to do with it. They don't see the opportunity inherent in it, or they're so far gone that it makes them depressed and despondent and nihilistic because they think that they're doomed, right? These are the guys who are ready to just put a noose around their neck and end it all and just say, forget it, I'm done. Bye-bye, right? It's game over. Hit the reset button. undo. We reset the game. At least that's what they think. That's easy. The guys who are blue pill alphas are a little bit tougher to sort of nail down in respect to what their belief set is. And they tend to be they tend to be white knights, let's just be honest. And they also tend to be very difficult to unplug. As I've said before in my shows about naturals, and clearly Mike is a natural. Clearly, if you just look at him, you listen to him, you see what his body of work, right? You look at what he's done, the success that he has achieved in his lifetime, his upbringing, the things that he has, accomplished in his lifetime. Clearly, the guy is alpha. Clearly, the guy has done a lot with what he has been given and has built up from that. Okay, that is exactly why it is difficult for guys like this to be taken seriously by guys who are not like that. And generally, when you look at success success gurus, let's just say, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but if you look at guys who are success oriented or quote unquote entrepreneurs, if you look at guys like, again, I have to use Tony Robbins as an example of this. Yeah, he's done a lot with himself, but what really has he done? Right? What like if we can pick that apart and you say, well, he's got lots of money, so it doesn't matter. I get this all the time. Like when people ask me about like, well, what about Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan sold basically out to Spotify for $100 million. So when they start deleting his past episodes on Spotify because some social justice warrior who's on the staff at Spotify doesn't like those. They don't like the interviews with Jordan Peterson. They don't like his interviews with celebrities who don't toe the SJW leftist progressivist line, and they throw those away. And Joe really can't do anything, but he doesn't really put up or anything. We say, oh, well, Joe sold out. Well, there's always a chorus of guys ready to say, well, he made $100 million. So that's all that matters, right? It doesn't matter about integrity. It doesn't matter about, he's got $100 million. You would think that a guy like that could actually back it up and say, you know what? I don't want to work with you guys anymore. You know what? I'm going to fight. I'm going to push back against them. But they don't. And so we can excuse that based on the numbers. How much you have in your bank account, right? Okay, well, does $100 million in your bank account make you right? Does $100 million in your bank account buy you integrity? So those are some things that you have to sort of think about when you're talking about guys who are in this sort of success, build yourself up, become the best version of yourself kind of guy. And yes, I know Rich Cooper talks about this stuff too. Okay, I'm not saying anything about Rich in this particular instance. But that's the whole thing. Is like I came up from nothing, my bootstraps, right? I was born a poor child in the inner city, and now look at me now, right? That's even Tony Robbins has that story. Any good success grifter has that exact same story. They wrote a book about like how to be successful, right? How to be, DJ DeMarco, right? I was born in poverty, and look where I am now. Even Robert Kiyosaki has that exact same story. So when I see that, that's sort of like par for the course. I get it. Some people's story might be realer than others. I was not born a poor child in the inner city. I mean, I grew up in not a depressed part of Los Angeles, but suburban part of LA. And yeah, I went through some real stuff, and I went, people say, well, okay, well, you haven't earned it. You haven't paid your dues. It's like, oh, I think I've paid my dues, but I pay my dues in different ways. Everybody does. So we have to bear that in mind when we're talking about like the success hustle thing going here. Now, again, not saying that that's the case here, but these are things to keep in mind when you're listening to stuff like this. Now, that's why I keep saying is like, it's hard for guys who have a different life experience to listen to something that is, like this sort of like, find that deep confidence that's down in your soul. And it gets very metaphysical. It's very energy. It's very, vibing. It's very like I said, metaphysical. It's chick crack is essentially what it is. And it's not that guys don't like subscribe to that as well. Women tend to be more interested in the metaphysical and the supernatural and tarot card readings and, MBTI and God, astrology, right? Well, what are you? And you can use that to your advantage, of course, but that's what, when you start hearing that as sort of like this veneer, I guess, for a lack of a real counter argument, that's when you kind of have to sort of take things with a grain of salt and realize who you're talking to and what the conversation that you're actually having. So that said, when we are looking at a guy who is a natural, it's very hard to say, well, I could emulate that. I could learn from that. I would love to trade lives with that guy. A lot of guys would love to trade lives with a guy like Giga Chad, right? The guy who's the muscle bound dude that everybody uses as sort of this extreme example. They meme the hell out of poor Giga Chad. Sorry, he's got a chin like the Crimson Chin from Fairly Odd Parents. I mean, the dude is just, you know, if you don't know who Giga Chad is, go and look up Giga Chad on Google. You probably already know, but you can't take that guy's advice seriously. And most people, and even the most, you know, based, objective red pill guy in the world is still going to have to agree with this, is that his lived experience is going to be a whole lot different than, I would say, 98%, 99% of the human race. Now, I'm not saying that's the same case here, but when you get wrapped up in it, when that sort of becomes your, let's say, hustle, but that becomes your sort of livelihood, and you're building yourself up and say, I can do it. Stop being a weak bitch, right? Stop being a little bitch, right? It's this sort of drill sergeant, football coach advice. Well, it's coming from a place of this lived experience that other people simply don't have a frame of reference for, and they're probably not going to have a frame of reference for. Now, is it make it meaningless? No, of course not. Absolutely not. In fact, a lot of guys get a lot out of that. Everybody who I've met thus far, as soon as I started like hanging out with Robert Kiyosaki, they're like, oh yeah, the guy changed my life, right? It's just as much as your book changed my life about women, his book changed my life about money. Okay. Now, you guys can tell me if that's true or that's not. I just work here. But the fact remains that no matter what the guy's lived experience, maybe there's something along the way that you can sort of pick up on, and you can say, well, you know, that really sort of moved me. I read Robert Greene's book, 48 Laws of Power, and that definitely changed my mind about a lot of things. Mastery changed my mind about a lot of things. Even Art of Seduction changed my mind about a lot of things. And I am still open to having those opinions changed, right? When I read, God's Odds, Parasitic Mind, same thing. So anyways, I'm going to dig into this today, but I wanted to sort of give you the preface of that right there. I realize that now we're at the 20-minute mark, but that's the preface for today's show. I'm going to dig into here, and I want you guys to listen to this as we go along. Again, lived experience versus what you can find valuable in that lived experience. So let's put you back in.
It makes your life so much easier.
See, I get what you're saying, Mike, but the average guy can't do that.
Okay, hold on.
But
before, when I didn't have the confidence to say these things, because right now I can fly anybody in, I can fly anywhere in the world, I could do whatever I want to do, right? So, and there's always somebody who's going to be down for what you want, right? So when women realize that and they want you, if you're of value, they're going to like, all right. But I wasn't in position at certain times of my life to do that. So a motherfucker shouldn't be, if you're not in position, if you want that and you're not in position to be honest about it, get yourself in position. Quit spending energy on girls and spend energy on getting to the bag, developing your foundation. See, I don't think that we differ, right? But I think some of the energy should go to the men, like, yo, level the fuck up.
Oh yeah.
Quit trying to, because look,
we yell at the guys too.
Yeah,
quit trying to go on dates. Quit trying to maintain a woman, right? If you can't really hold it down like that, right? And move around the way that you really want to. Because the problem is this, and I see young dudes on the show all the time, it's like, what are you on Tinder for? Go to school, like, or get a better job, or qualify yourself for this or that. You know, and dudes is doing it backwards. And here's the thing, for young dudes, when you're young, full of energy, ideas, you need to be ferocious at developing your foundation.
All right, I'm going to stop right there for a moment. I like what he's saying. However, again, as I was saying before, this is lived experience. So he's approaching this from a perspective of having accomplished a lot. He's saying himself, like, as I showed you guys on the lead in here video, he's at the point right now where he can make the rules. And most of the guys who are following this show, who are following Fresh's show, Fresh and Myron's show, other guys in the red pill sphere, they're not at that stage yet. They have not built themselves up to that particular point. Now, here is where I find flaws in a lot. And this is not, I mean, this is even like well-meaning red pill guys, right? It's always be on your game, be on your hustle, drive towards that particular goal. And then once you finally get to that particular stage, then you get the women. It's kind of like the Scarface template for success, right? First you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. That's basically the hustle. And once you get past that, it's like then suddenly the women are just sort of this ancillary thing at the end that come into play, and then you can make the rules, right? Like, I mean, Mike's just saying, hey, I can fly girls in, and it's all on me now. And yeah, when you're that guy and you have that look and you have that level of accomplishment, and you're that when you're Mike Rashid, then yeah, I'm sure you can. And again, that is why you don't take advice from naturals, because they don't know how it works for them. They don't know how they got to that point, or they followed a certain step, or they followed an old order plan to get to that level of success, or to make themselves the best version of themselves that they could be. Clearly Mike is if not there, he's really close to being the best version that he can be right now. So yeah, of course women are going to be down for a threesome. Of course women are going to be down for whatever it is. And if they're not, then they're out the window. And women who are looking for as high a value man as that are already going to have this foreknowledge that's what they have to deal with. That if they're not down with whatever it is that Mike wants to be, if he wants to be, if he wants 10 women, like he was saying before, Floyd Mayweather, if I can have 9 cars, why wouldn't I have 9 cars? If I can have 10 women, why would I not have 10 women? Well, when you're that guy, when you're Floyd Mayweather and you have that kind of money and you have all of that means and everything else that makes you that valuable, yeah, you can. But that we're looking at the apex example. This is a perfect illustration of the apex fallacy, only it's a guy that is telling you about the apex fallacy. Look at me. I'm at the top of the heap. I'm at the very top of the pyramid right now. Just be like me. Just get to the top of the pyramid, and then you too can then concern yourself with women. You then can concern yourself with having, 10 girls and 9 cars, right? Whatever it is. And for guys in this stage who are living a different experience than he did, because clearly, guys, if you look at Mike at age 20, and I don't know how old he is right now. I think he's in his 40s. I'm pretty sure he's in, if not close. He's getting close, because he said something about how his father was like 80 years old. So he's certainly late 30s, if nothing else, maybe even 40. So he's already had this lived experience that most of these guys are just coming into. So it's very easy to say, well, just make the most of yourself. Just build yourself up. Go to school. Go do this. And that's not bad advice. No one's going to disagree with that. And he knows that no one is going to disagree with that. The problem with that is that you are stunting your education in other areas. Now, when we talk about what it is that guys, like the 3 things that guys are looking for primarily in this life, it is make money, make muscles, and learn game, right? And the learn game part is really like understand women's nature, understand how to get laid. Now, prior to this, Myron was, of course, talking about all the things like the pillars of success for guys, right? And part of that success is sleep with 50 women. Like at least have that experience. It's not like that's the literal number, like 40, 50, whatever it is. Sleep with enough women so that you understand the nature of women. And this is, and I know exactly where he's getting this from. This is the 6 chapters on plate theory that are out of my first book. So when we talk about spinning plates, yes, that is a term that I lifted from Tom Likas. There you go. It's just so you guys have that now. You forget about commenting about that. But yes, spinning plates is dating non-exclusively. It is still being after women. It doesn't mean you're doing everything to get laid, learning the secret of poon, right? How do I figure them out? It's like, remember in Conan, when Conan had to what is the mystery of steel? And then like Thulsa Doom says, Oh, you want the mystery of Seal? Here, let me tell you. Let me ruin that for you really quickly. In that one scene in the end of Conan, you probably, okay, geek moment, sorry, but like it's the same thing. This mystery that most guys right now, certainly in their late teens, all the way apparently up until they're 29 years old, according to the GSS studies, they don't understand this. They don't get it. And so when we see a generation of guys who are quote unquote losers, we think that the reason why that they're losers is because they're always chasing after women. That's their whole thing. And they would be successes if they just didn't obsess over women. Well, clearly they're not obsessing over women because statistically speaking, at least from 2018, 2019, they're not getting laid. And they don't care that they're getting laid. There's a certain subset of guys those are the top 20% guys that we all know. Let's talk about hypergamy again, whatever. But the fact of the matter remains is that the mystery of women is something that guys can't solve, or they don't know how to, how do I learn game? I'm writing a book on understanding game, not like a how-to book on game, but understanding game, because so many guys ask me, well, role aware, how do I learn basically, how do I learn the mystery of women? Let me tell you. I'm Thulsa Doom, right? Let me tell you. And so they haven't figured this stuff out. Well, when you're at the apex level of success, the only thing you can, especially when you have a lived experience that is completely different from these other guys, you have to fall back on standard tropes. You have to fall back on what sounds right. It's like, just be yourself. And that's the same thing. Well, don't follow women. Go west, young man. Focus on getting some money. Because once you get the money, you get the power. Once you get the power, you get the girls, right? Say hello to my little friend. And that might sound great in 1982 when, Al Pacino is Scarface, but this is 2021. And that's old order thinking. That's 20th century thinking. We need to upgrade. We need to push things up into the 21st century. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I think. That's where I think Fresh and Myron and a lot of other people who are in this sphere are trying to do right now. Well, you can't build a success brand on that. There has to be something that is much more simplistic and easier to understand. And that's usually where it is. So what happens is it's like, just stop focusing on girls. He's going to say this here in just a minute. I would have been a billionaire if I would have just stopped focusing on girls in my 20s, which might be true. Yes, sure. I'm not saying you obsessively focus on women. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I keep saying, don't get married. Don't become monogamous until you're 30. First book, 2013, The Rational Male, the very first one. You will find those words right there in the plate theory section of that book. And plate theory is not bang anything on two legs. It's not a PUA thing. It's a learned experience thing. It is date non-exclusively. And the reason why I say that is so that you don't get wrapped up into this serial monogamy that most guys who are the 80%ers, the guys who are the betas who trying to figure this stuff out, or trying to figure out the mystery of woman, those guys don't get wrapped up in one-itis. They don't get wrapped up in the soulmate myth. That's why I say that. And it's right there, black and white. It's been there for at least the last 8 years. Published 8 years ago in October. So that's why that's a rule. That's why that's a rule. That's a suggestion. Okay. It's dream girls and children with dynamite. And that's really where Mike is going to go with this here in just a minute. I wrote another chapter called Dream Girls and Children with Dynamite. And what he's worried about is like giving these guys the keys to the car doesn't mean that they can drive the car and that they're going to ruin themselves because they're just going to focus on pussy. That's all they're going to do. And again, a critique that has come back around one more time in the last 20 years. You're turning these guys into, social robots. No, I'm not. I'm giving them an education so that they can understand and live better life, become better versions of themselves. But that's the problem. People think that it's just about this obsessive, compulsive, overwhelming drive to to get laid. And that right there is what a lot of guys want to use against the red pill. They think that that's all it is. And it is so much more. And I will fight that until I am in the grave. Understanding the red pill is not about just getting laid. It is about understanding women's nature. It is about understanding men's nature. whether that's sexual, whether that, and that goes from the micro to the macro. That goes from understanding things like ovulatory shift and women's menstrual cycles and how that affects their behaviors, all the way up to how it's affecting our politics and our religion right now. That's why it's important to nip this shit in the bud as soon as possible. Because if you don't, then people go, oh, well, you know, that's just those PUAs. They don't know what they're talking about. They just focus on pussy. That's all they care about is pussy, pussy, pussy. They're, even MGTOWs, even Black Pill, those guys are just pussy hounds. That's always that same thing. It comes from tradcons. It comes from Black Pill. It comes from doomers. It comes from MRAs. Always comes from that side. That's why they use the PUA as this kind of like, you know, Leisure Suit Larry caricature. You don't want to be like those PUAs, man. They just care about poon. And look at them. They're down in the gutter. And look at me. I'm at the top of the heap right now. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go and build yourself up. I keep saying this over and over again, that by the time you get to be 36, heck, by the time you get to be Mike's age, yes, you should have maximized your potential. He is a fantastic example of a man who has maximized his potential. The problem is that he got to that potential and he's still blue pill. He still doesn't understand the mystery of women. That's the problem. He thinks he does because he can have any chick he wants, but he can, not because he understands women's nature, but because he is so high on that at the top of the pyramid, at the apex of the 20% of guys that women want to get with, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. In fact, I would argue, and people can correct me on this, but I would argue that he probably has never thought or had the insight to think about half of the stuff that Fresh and Myron are sort of presenting to him in this. Now, there's a series of other videos going around like, oh, you know, Mike Rashid versus the red pill. Okay, whatever. But I would say that the only reason like guys like this are coming around to the red pill is because it's like this, it's the Tim Pool effect, right? It's Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, Loudereth Crowder, even Andrew Klavan. Look at the laundry list of guys who suddenly want to become red pill. They suddenly want to talk about all this stuff. And you know what? Every single time we talk to these guys, they have no clue what they're talking about. And they have to tread very, very lightly. I'm still never going to get invited to go talk to Tim. Hey, call me up, Tim, right? I'm never going to go on that show because they know that if I come in there, I'm going to fuck up their shit. That's what's going to happen. And there goes my monetization, whatever. But that will happen. So I go in there and present arguments and present data and present things that they could not have any counter argument to. And that's what they're worried about. You want to know why I'm not going to go on Joe Rogan? Same reason. They'll have Hotep Jesus on there, but they won't have Rollo Tomasi on. They say, "Oh, well, you sound like you're jilted." Oh, no, that's not it. I know that I won't get on there because I will raise issues or I'll talk about things that they simply don't want to talk about. Rich Cooper was just on with Andrew Klavan. I thought that was interesting, considering that I just did a critique video of his stuff, sort of picking it apart. And then if you go and you look at the commentary on that video that he just did, it's all women going, well, you know, if you have a good Christian marriage, then things, and it's all this default to this reflexive, response to, defaulting to a religious and moral and ethical, belief sets and ethical rational, for lack of a better term, rationalizations, right? And nothing gets done. It just makes for a good show for him, and he's going to move on and do whatever. You think he's going to change his mind? No, he's not going to change his mind. But let me get back to this. I thought I would throw that out there because the operative point here is this. Sorry, you got me. Way to go. Here he is.
You sly dog. You got me monologuing.
There you go. I got my stream deck here finally. So yeah, when I get monologuing, the point of it is that naturals are usually the worst people to learn game from. They're the worst people to take advice from. Natural guys are the worst people to take advice from. Now, maybe not from a business standpoint, maybe not from a success standpoint, but when it comes to women, if a guy is a blue pill alpha, you're not going to learn the mystery of women. You're not going to be able to untangle that kind of stuff because he still doesn't know. Because it just shows up at his doorstep. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Most guys who are naturals simply don't ask themselves, why am I so successful with women? Well, it must be because of my achievements. And that's probably true. Well, so they believe that the only way to get to that point, to get to the point where women will come to you and sort of, fall into your frame, is if you get to that apex level of achievement. Well, that suits them just fine because that's pretty much what their communities are all about. Yeah, of course. Where do we go?
Because the older you get, you're not going to have the energy to be hustling. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And you shouldn't. It hurts my heart when I see older guys going to work every day, back hurting. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that shit. It makes me think of like, damn, what if that was my grandfather or my father? See, my grandfather, he did it right. You know what I'm saying? A very traditional situation. He retired after 40 years on his job. Him and my grandmother traveled all over the Caribbean every other month. You know what I'm saying? Until he passed away, and then she passed away, right? So they had a legit life, right? So I'm like, a man should, when you're young, instead of chasing women, chase the bag.
I agree.
And then the women will chase you.
Now, I just
Okay, so the problem with this, and I'm going to read you something. This is actually a really good stopping point. So chase the bag, right? Chase success. Become the best version of yourself as possible. Get built. Learn combat sports. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Great. But none of that helps you understand the nature of women. Now, I'm going to read to you a part from my essay called Blue Pill Alphas. This is from 2016. This is a little excerpt from that. I will put the link to in the description to what I'm about to read here. Okay. Now, this is what I said back then, and this is from that. It's a section from that essay. It's called Dangerous White Knights. Okay. Now, do you guys remember? Some of you maybe you're not a nerd like me, but like maybe I'm the only guy who watched both seasons of Daredevil on Netflix. But if you watch the first season where they go into the origin and character of Wilson Fisk, he's Kingpin, okay? And by the way, played by James D'Onofrio, and you couldn't have picked a better Kingpin. I mean, perfect casting for this role, okay? This is exactly the type of guy I'm talking about here. Wildly alpha, wildly unstable, but still in control of his empire. Put a woman in his life and he transitions all of that alpha energy to essentially worshiping that woman. So in fact, this prioritizing of women above his own interests is the motivation for his empire building. These are the alpha white knights who channel the alpha energy to making his blue pill idealisms a reality for any woman who fits his ideal. Does that sound anything like what Mike is just talking about right here, right now? Now, what I mean is you work in building your empire. You make your money. It's all about the bag, especially when you're younger. And if you just focus on the bag all the time and just be single-minded and tunnel visioned, and that's the only thing that matters, great. The problem with that is you turn into Kingpin. The problem is that with the just focusing on one thing is you do so to the exception of other things. Again, why does Rollo say spin more plates? This is why. I'm not saying settle down and get married. I'm not saying just endlessly focus on pussy, right? Most guys don't do that. Most guys can't do that. They have approach anxiety. They don't know game. The average guy who's watching this channel, who's watching that channel, they want to be built up. They want to have that sort of pep talk and that pep rally feeling. Like, yeah, I can do it now. Thanks, Mike. All right. Rollo, you rock. Awesome. Robert Kiyosaki, man, I'm making more money than I've ever made in my life. Awesome. Cool. The problem is that if you're focusing on one of those things to the exception of all the others, you're going to be at a disadvantage when something comes around that challenges you in that respect. Remember, make money, make muscles, learn game. If all you're doing is focusing on one aspect at a single time, you're going to be deficient in other aspects of it because you can only apply yourself so much to that. And this is exactly the only real, like it's the just be yourself dismissal of anything else. Well, yeah, bitches ain't nothing but tricks and hoes, and yeah, there's a certain type of woman, right? Those are the damaged ones. So you should know better. How should I know better? I'm focused on the bag. How should I know better and watch for a woman who's going to be like super damaging to my life? That's why I wrote, Dream Girls and Children with Dynamite. If all you're doing is focusing on that one thing, what's going to happen is you're going to be an easy mark. And what really sucks is when you build a life around that. And then once you get to be like later on in your 70s and you realize, hey, I could have been, if I would have understood the mystery of women back in my 20s, I wouldn't be 70 years old, only having been with one woman, if that, my whole life, and living in a sexless marriage. I'm going on dead bedrooms. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to rationalize it religiously, whatever. I wouldn't be in the position I am at 70 years old, and I can't go back. I can't have that time back. Hell, even if you spent one of my biggest regrets in my life is actually having spent something like three and a half, about 3.5 years in my mid-20s with a woman who was borderline personality disorder. That's not because I was like just focusing on it, just how can I get more pussy, right? It was focused on one woman because I didn't understand, because I can't have those years back. I can't go back to those formative times. I can't go get those opportunities that I turned down voluntarily during that time. And the reason why I didn't is because I was unprepared. I was defenseless against something like that because I wasn't focused on understanding the mystery of woman, right? I wasn't thinking about trying. Now, what will happen is this. If I go and I explain that to a guy like Mike, they'll go, well, you should have known better. How? How should I have known better? How? What education? What class in school, in college did I miss that I should have known better? I'll tell you why I shouldn't have known better is because I should have been focused on other things at that time. Well, that's just a failure of character. Well, that's easy to say when you're at the top of the heap. That's easy to say when you're in the apex position. Well, you just should have known better. And the reason why that sounds like logic to those guys is because they don't know what else to say. They don't know what else is a good answer. It's just the same thing as just be yourself, man. You go and you ask I can remember this. I can remember asking guys, like natural guys, back when I was in my late teens, like, how do these guys do it, man? It's like, they're just lucky. Is that, well, they're really good looking. Yeah, but I wasn't a slouch. I didn't look bad back then. But these guys were like, they had that, I don't say dark triad, but certainly that sort of like devil may care attitude. And they were just sort of full of themselves. And they had mental point of origin more than anything else. And they were lucky with the girls. And most guys would agree. Oh, he's just lucky. The girls just like him. And so you ask that guy and you say, hey, how do you do this, man? Even if you had the gumption or whatever, the notion to ask that guy, hey, how do you do it, man? They would be like, I don't know, man. I just smile at them and they love me. That's advice. Then they build an empire on that, right? That's the only thing that they can explain it by, because that's their lived experience. So they can't teach you how to be them because they haven't even figured it out themselves. They haven't figured out why they're successful. I just smile, man. Just be yourself. The right one will come along. Girls say that, and natural guys will say that. Blue pill alphas will say exactly that because they haven't given it any thought. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's being successful, they don't question it. They know, why am I really successful? Is it really luck? No, I'm just going to go get my knob polished right now. It's hard to have those thoughts when women are like wanting to claw your clothes off at an earlier age. I've said this also before, is that there's no such thing as a natural. It's just guys who have had a jump ahead than you, whether that's no, not saying it's not because of their looks. There might be a guy who's in high school, you're 14, he's 14, but he looks like he's much older and he's more built than you. Genetically, he's got an advantage on you. Yeah, sure. But he's learning the skills earlier than you are. He's figuring out the mystery of women long before you are. You will, if you keep going, but he's already figured that stuff out. And again, focusing on just that one thing to the exception of others is going to put you at a disadvantage later. That is a common story amongst guys who are like, 30 years old, 40 years old, somewhere around like 30, mid 30s ish, maybe even mid 40s. And guys are like, they got raked over the coals in the divorce courts because they hadn't figured it out. That's why Rich Cooper's a good example of this, right? Rich Cooper's very much red pill, very much an alpha. He was very much a beta before when he was in his, and I think Rich would agree with me on this. I'm not stepping on his feet or anything, but he was very much a beta when he was married and hadn't figured that stuff out. I don't know how much money he was making, but I would say he was certainly focused on the bag and probably thought that was going to be the key to getting a successful relationship and having women and all this other stuff. You don't learn how to deal with women if all you are doing is focusing on whatever your business is and whatever your hustle is all the time. you will be at a disadvantage. As a matter of fact, you will be wide open to predatory women. Look at Jeff Bezos, for example. Bezos is now out of, he's divorced Mackenzie, but look who comes in. Why is not Jeff Bezos is way higher on the apex as far as, concerning yourself with the bag. That's all he did, was concern himself with the bag. Just get that paper, man. And he did. He's the richest man in the world. And look who he's banging. Dirty Sanchez. Lauren Sanchez. He could be living like Dan Bilzerian. He could be living like Mike. He could be living like a lot. He could be nailing a new hot chick every single day of his life until he dies if he wants to. But no, he goes with Lauren Sanchez. And he's still with her, even after all of that hustle and everything else that went on. And go ahead and tell me all your conspiracy theories. I've already covered this in other episodes. But the fact remains is the guy could be doing something different, and he's not doing something different because he's still blue pill. He's been focused on one thing, just like everybody says you're supposed to. You don't magically get some epiphany from God because you suddenly are making $100,000 a year, or you're making $500,000 a year, or you're suddenly a billionaire, or whatever the hell it is. You could be the richest man in the world and still be very, very blue pill and not know the nature of women. In fact, I would argue that the more you focus, to the exception of everything else, on one thing, you will probably be in a very bad place, a very bad deficit in other areas of your life if you don't.